Welcome to just another solar podcast with Beattie. That's me, and Karl Jensen. G'day, Karl. How's it going?
Hello. How you going, mate?
Not too
thanks
bad.
for arranging this again. You're a legend.
That's all good, man. Almost there for Christmas. It's been an interesting year.
Indeed. And the last week or so is even more interesting with freight carriers unable to pick stuff up at all.
I think that's predictable, though. That's been every Christmas since I've been in the industry. Under promise and hope for the best. There's been a lot going on, and our special guest today is Shane Arnold. Shane, welcome aboard. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, fellas. Nice to have an invite.
You're very active online. You're probably one of the most responsive guys from the manufacturers online and always accessible. I imagine that takes its toll.
Well, as you, Beattie, I'm on the West Coast, so my day usually starts at a phone call, generally 4:30 in the morning, because New Zealand wants to know some answers. And then that starts off and Sydney wakes up and then it keeps going on. And then, you start getting the after hours messages and you set online. So Facebook is constantly up and running. It's the main contact avenue, that WhatsApp and a phone. So, yeah, we do cover a lot and follow the sun. So, yeah, it's pretty exhausting.
And tell me, man, all the talk's been around the AS4 777 and we were saved at the last minute apparently, but how close did we come to disaster?
Oh, really close. It was up on the wall. I think, you guys have been in the industry long enough. I've been in and out of it over 10 years. And you always have this confidence that it's going to work out in the wash and it's all going to happen. It's all going to be sorted. This was a close one. So there were some pretty pivotal people and actions that I think really brought this to a head and made it work. It was damn close.
There was the key meeting on Monday, and that was with EES, ERAC, manufacturers were represented, but also the CEC and Smart Energy Council were there. Now, every time I've heard an account of this meeting, it gets bigger and bigger. So we were near defeat, and then John Grimes came in on the back of a horse in a shiny silver suit and saved the day. By all accounts, he did a bloody good job in advocating for us and cutting through the bullshit. What's your take on it?
Yeah, so I could probably be criticised for elaborating this because, as you say, every time you talk about it, it gets bigger and better and you pick up other people's stories. My take on it was the Smart Energy Council's WhatsApp group amongst us members sort of kicked off when someone said, hey, look, we got a problem here. And Wayne and John and the team sort of took the bull by the horns and there was meetings arranged and it kind of gets lost in the ether a bit of who was actually leading it and so forth. As a manufacturer, I really didn't care about who was going to get credit for this. We were just wanting to achieve something. So to me, there's a couple of pivotal people that I noticed, and it may be different to others, people's opinion, was John Grimes, Darren Gladman from the CEC. I got a lot of time for that guy. He just looking at him in the meetings, you could see he was really exhausted. But the other one is that was really entertaining there, probably not the right word, was James from Sturch, I think it is, from Solar Edge. The guy's just a walking encyclopedia of the standards and had everything on record. So that was really good to see. But John did a good thing, opened up the meetings, had a good speech, got to the point, which was nice, and so sat back and let the meeting roll on. And a couple of things he said that was pretty good was, this isn't a next week solution. It is a this week solution. We're talking tomorrow and the day after. And the conversation went on. And I can't remember John's words exactly, but it almost sounded like he was saying, look, this has to happen. It's going to happen. And if it's not going to happen, I'm going to kick in the doors of every politician that needs to be kicked in and drag them out and make them aware of this. And there's some raised eyebrows there, but it was really welcome to hear that. I think ERAC, I think Ian was his name, it was mistakenly took that as a threat and said, don't threaten my staff. John didn't apologise for it. I don't think it needed an apology because there's a whole industry riding on this and pleasantries weren't required, but diplomacy was, and I think it was pretty good. It was good to see it. I see there's a lot of authorising bodies or whatever fighting for their piece of a pie or something like that. It wasn't really typical of the market where it's like, right, we're going to go talk to these people and those people. It was people were fighting to make this work, so it was good.
In regards to the 18th, there's been a lot of conjecture around whether the inverter that you had that was stopped by a DC isolator you could now use even if it wasn't on the CEC list, or whether in fact it's regardless of the DC isolator issue, it still needed to be on that CEC list for you to be able to install it. So I think Tesla may have got a confused message. They thought that if there was a Grid Connect application in before the 18th of December, that the Powerwall could be installed. That concerned me somewhat, because if it was that simple, that's what the rest of the industry would have done with their inverters.
Yeah. So my take on that was, so Western Power, for example, said if you had your application in before a certain period of time, I think it was 10th of December, you had 3 months from the date of approval to install it, regardless if it was 2020 or not. The only roadblock you may have is your STC trader. The rule's pretty clear, right? Like if the DNSP allows you to put it on their network, then it's pretty much kosher. So it was just this blanket of grey area over everything. Going back to what you were sort of saying there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of posts on Facebook basically saying, if we make a declaration that it's going to be compliant, well, that's all good. And it wasn't. It had to be declared. You had to submit your test report. It has to be on the CEC list. That's the long and the short of it. It has to be on the CEC list and say it expires after December 18th. And there was a great process put together. We've submitted our products to it, speaking with some of the other manufacturers, which I might want to say what was really cool throughout this whole process is that all us manufacturers, well, I can speak for myself, there was probably 3 or 4 that we were regularly in contact with. The guys at Fronius reached out, Hans, and said, look, if you need any help or want any interpretation, hit us up. Patrick at Redback and Jason at FEMA, however you want to say it. Yeah, there was a few of us there. So that was really good. It was really showing that the industry is maturing and we can work together.
It's true. There's an incorrect perception that Fronius were hoping that there wouldn't be a resolution, which was the reality totally was quite the opposite.
Yeah,
because for a few reasons, number one, they wanted the industry to keep going ahead. They wouldn't have had enough stock to carry the whole industry, and they would have flushed all the stock and they wouldn't have been prepared to do it. So they were supportive of everyone getting across the line. It wouldn't have been good for anyone if that wasn't the case.
As a manufacturer, your main motivation is to make sure your customers are profitable and stay in business because they're the ones that pay the bills and keep placing more orders. There is nothing to give you an advantage on knocking other people out of business because that keeps it fun. You can't win all the business. And if you did, it's a risk. Because if you won all the business and then the market crashed for whatever reason, someone went on the steps of Parliament and said no more rebates, you're over. No, it's quite the opposite. A lot of people were reaching out to each other. How are you doing this? How are you going about that? It was good. I've been in a couple industries, telco, marine. Never is it like that. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, Shane. You've got more variety than most, having EV charging and power supply units and EV onboard chargers as well. What do you think's going on in that space?
Yeah, really cool space. So Delta is really diverse. It's one of the things that attracted me to the company many, many years ago when I started distributing Solivia. So being in WA, I've got the whole portfolio for WA and nationally, EV charging and PVI inverters. So EV charging is just moving rapidly. And with South Australia announcing that they're going to be doing up to $2,000 subsidies for EV chargers, that's going to be big news. And like we see with a lot of things in South Australia, they're pretty much leading the way in a lot of areas. Maybe the other states are going to follow. Learning a lot about that and the space. And I expect that a lot of the solar side of things are going to look for alternative businesses to diversify themselves. It's a model that works, and I think EV charging is going to be where that heads. But
what do you see as the current barriers with EV charging?
Well, what I've been discovering is, a lot of people would not understand how a vehicle actually charges and how it can take power on and how that works within the home, load control. People are going to be putting a lot of chargers on homes and come home, plug the car in, turn the oven on, the air conditioner and the kettle, and bing, they're going to trip the circuit because it's too much load. Discovering things like South Australia, WA, maximum single phase charger load you can put on is 20 amp. So it's like 4.8 kilowatts. So, and then a lot of them are 7 kilowatts out of the box. So you're going to have to play with that. But there's going to be some regulations around that. I think the control, the monitoring, a lot of people are talking about V2X. It's taking power out of the car and feeding it to the grid. I'm still on the fence on that, whether that's a viable technology to use. I think for things like FCAS, it would be great, but for self-consumption, buy yourself a house battery. Don't be using it.
Because, it's going to impact on the life of the battery if you're charging and discharging multiple times a day.
I mean, I've got a battery in my car. It's a rolling battery. Why don't I use that for my own consumption? I look at it like this. You get about 8 kilometres on a good day out of a Tesla Model 3 for every kilowatt hour. If you go and pull 10 kilowatt hours out of your car, would you expect 80 kilometres to be put on your odometer? Do that every day. That's essentially what's happening. Not that they can do that with an odometer, but you get my point. I do think V2X will be in place. Nissan, have been quite vocal that they want to do it. It's not cheap to do it and meet all the guidelines. But I think with EV charging, look, it's just another load and you just plug it in, let it do its thing and charge. I think a lot of people are looking for smart chargers to do things. A lot of people are wanting to charge from excess solar. And Karl will know this in Victoria. I remember seeing a lot of people there in New South Wales that zero export control is a real thing. So how can you charge from excess solar if there is no excess solar being exported? So it kind of gets to the point, and we're seeing the consumer now buying electric vehicle. They're treating it like a car. The earlier adopters no longer get in there and get into the nitty-gritty of things. The most I'll see happening is my electricity is cheap from 10 p.m. till 4 a.m. Charge my car then and only then. Or if I come home, just charge it because I'm going to go out and I need more kilometres now. So I think it's going to be remember when we were doing solar for the first time, 2009, 2010, and the blackout would happen and the customer would be confused. Why doesn't my solar work during a blackout? I think we're going to go through a transition of that in EV charging, explaining how it's best to use it and make it, and we'll educate the consumer. And in 5 years' time, it'll be a no-brainer.
It should be pretty straightforward though, Shane. I mean, we've talked outside of this around your levels of home automation and things that you've got for being able to remotely turn on air conditioners and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Is an EV charger something that can be programmed remotely or accessed by the grid? Grid says, please charge EV now, ramp it up to whatever it'll take for midday solar peaks. Is that technology far away?
Well, it's going to have to come in to be part of the South Australian rebate. They haven't released details, but they've insinuated that that's the case. And personally, I think it should be. And yes, it can be done now in many cases. And the trick is it going to go through the EV charger or is it going to communicate with the car? You're paying all this money for a car. Should it have onboard tech that says, I know the plan I'm on, I know where I am, I should be doing this, or do we program it for each site? In my house, as you know, the level of automation I run for everything, I would program it to do anything and everything that it needs to be done. They use a protocol called OCPP instead of Modbus, Open Charge Point Protocol. And that's, the automation world will move into integrating with that as well, as it already is on my system that I run. You'll start seeing we're really at the beginning of this. And I think Australia is really going to lead the way on what's going to be required to work on their grid. The positive of that is a lot of people in the forums who keep saying, electric cars are going to crash the grid. Electric cars can't let the grid crash because then we won't be able to charge them. So the electric vehicle groups have everything going for them to not crash the grid and to work with the grid because they need it. Without it, we're not going anywhere.
So this gold plating the grid, I see that the federal government has put in a heap of money to some big interconnectors. And of course, this helps the whole situation. Maybe we will be able to deal with everybody using 10 kilowatt hours a day extra for their electric car. 10
kilowatt hours a day, it's you're probably talking somewhere in the vicinity of 60 Ks if you were to charge on that. 60 Ks is a lot of kilometres. The average commute's, I think, 37 kilometres a day. So if you did that every day, you'd eventually build your battery up to 100% if you wanted to. It's not a hard ask. Yeah, I don't know. From the grid point of view, I just hope when they allocate money and interconnectors, it's for the right reasons and we'll do the job properly.
With the uptake of solar, batteries, EV, and all the other stuff, the grid needs to be upgraded. So it's not gold plating and doing unnecessary works. It's actually bolstering the infrastructure to cope with the new energy and so the loads that are coming online.
If they spend the money on the grid and the grid still keeps failing, questions will be raised. It'll be under the microscope now, whereas before I think money could be spent on it and never get actually questioned. But aside from that, we're diversifying even further, building up some off-grid products, which hopefully May next year we can launch. We're bringing that out of our telco power supply systems. As you know, we do a lot of the telco power supplies globally, and we've got some cool products there. But I know the position we'll be in. It's not a Selectronic product, which in my mind is one of the best off-grid products out there, and what they build is great. But I think it's going to be a good product to offer into certain market segments in the three-phase area. And, off-grid power is a bit of a passion of mine. So we'll see what comes out of that. And might be handy if that grid doesn't get gold-plated properly and you need some energy during those blackouts.
So the majority of clients for that sort of stuff is remote areas, edge of grid. You still get some potential solar and battery customers who are grid connected and they want to be off grid.
Yeah, a lot, right? Yeah. Our biggest issue we've got is a lot of people, I'm not going to use proper off-grid stuff. I'm just going to use a hybrid inverter and a battery, and I'm just going to go off-grid. And we've got people who have used our hybrids off-grid, and we've always said to them, this is not an off-grid system. This is a hybrid. It needs a grid connection. And they'll still go and install it. And they generally work very, very well, but there's people who don't work very well because they don't understand the limitations that may have been sold incorrectly, promises made and solutions not delivered. It's a very concerning part of the market. I've said to you many times, batteries concern me greatly. It's not necessarily from a product point of view for us. It's the expectations delivered to the customers, and will the customer be satisfied with what's being sold to them? And if they call us and say, this isn't what we were promised, and you work through the solutions. But yeah, I think it was being commented by Lewis that 2022 is year of the battery. And I'm going to be interested to see what year of the battery actually looks like. And 2010, 2011 was year of the 1.5 kilowatt solar system. We all know what got installed and happened then. So we're going to see a repeat of the rush to the battery. I don't know.
And the after service, the warranty issues.
Yeah. So, I've been with Delta 4.5 years, and I think the first 6 months of starting at Delta was cleaning up and sorting out the service and support part of it. And it was very, very clear that it's an area that they let down. It's something that we've worked hard on making sure it doesn't drop again. And when you look at, we're releasing AC coupled batteries, we're going to release big hybrid inverters for single phase and DC batteries. And you've got to look at that. And you as a manufacturer, you've got to say, great, we're going to launch this product. We're going to need service and support to bring training and new people on board. And you've got to allow for complications, whatever that may be. You go and build 3,000 batteries, you're going to have a few there that are going to have some bugs that are going to need to be sorted. We worked pretty close with some good partners to roll out the first batteries. And, we had a couple of bugs there and worked through them and got it going. But if we went and released 200 batteries going, yeah, they're all good, and you had a lot with bugs, your phone lines fill up. And what you end up happening is your customers get let down, the end users are let down, and all of a sudden you're mud on the forum. So you've got to work within your means on your
This
products.
is my concern. So coming back, you were talking about solar in 2010 to 2012.
Yeah.
And we saw a lot of new players in the market. We saw a lot of cheaper products and maybe substandard products and so forth. Now, there are some controls via the CEC accredited products program and some other controls in place, but the concern is that it's going to follow a similar path where there's a whole bunch of incoming products that can't manage the after-sales service and all the issues you just raised. So are we going to see a similar thing where a number of those fall away, orphan the products, and then we consolidate into the quality ones and the ones who actually support their products?
I think the players who are really playing in the battery market now are inverter manufacturers, mainly. Take Tesla out of the equation. They've got a great product and it works very well, and they've got this big machine supporting it. But when you've got all these other players bringing batteries, and they're generally from inverter manufacturers or being long-time battery players. So I don't think we're going to see orphaning of it. But if there are problems, if they've gone mass market, you're going to have to, I can't really comment on other people's structures, but it's battery problems aren't a 3-minute resolution. It's a 20-minute to 40-minute resolution if it's nothing major, and move on. You're going to need a lot of people if you have a lot of them come out. Our first battery with our hybrid was quite difficult, to say the least, and I had about 3 months of pain on that. And we got through it all, firmware updates, everything was great, and really didn't have a problem from then on. And we learnt from that. And, a battery that I received in 2019, I only released in September this year, and we were testing that whole time. And we got it right a while ago, but we sat there pushing and pushing and pushing, because you look at your costs, right? You need to be competitive in the market, and you're not going to go and hire 30 people to sit on phones. It's cheaper, easier just to release the product working and operational. Do people skip that step? I don't know. We'll find out in 2022 if it is the year of the battery.
I really think it's a difficult market to bring in a new machine. We've already seen a number of entry-level products in the market have significant issues and, as you say, tech support requirements, replacement batteries, even one of the bigger manufacturers, LG. The extent of that didn't look good from the outside. I didn't delve into it, but I hear they're handling it relatively well. It's an expensive process.
You know, we have a swap out warranty. We cover the freight there and back and some labour costs. That's in our warranty documents. I'll explain this when people sort of get angry about labour and travelling and warranty costs. None of us at Delta wake up and say, let's make a product that's going to cause problems, fail and cost us money. It's not our aim. It's not our MO. But we look at it very closely and go, you know what, to ship dangerous goods to site and shipping back a used battery is very difficult. And there's the environmental impact as well. If you have to scrap something because it's toast, it's not something that you want to be doing. Yeah, it's not good for the industry. And, you know, you hear of battery problems and you kind of get angry at other people if they have battery problems because you're like, it's kind of hurting the rest of the companies trying to do their thing.
Right. So, Shane, it's been quite a turbulent year by most accounts due to COVID, due to regulations and all this sort of stuff. Do you think it's going to be the same next year? Do you think we're going to get some smooth sailing? What's your take on where we're heading?
I think we're going to have more of the same. Shipping's my main concern right now. So component shortage, I've gone and forecasted everything out 18 months and we're buying in components. So it's all, you know, components, we're sort of getting there. Shipping is a big concern. You'll be able to ship anything you want. There'll just be a longer time and you just pay more for it. The Chinese New Year and Winter Olympics is going to cause delays globally because there's just going to be this freeze of freight and containers and so on. We see what happens when a canal gets blocked for a few weeks. That causes its own delays. So shipping, pallets, AdBlue, what's next? I don't know. All I know is if you can prepare further and further out as a manufacturer, you can do well. But we can only plan as far out as the distributors can, and the distributors can only plan out as far as the retailer installers can, which seems very short compared to what we can do. And I understand and respect that because there's a lot of risk in an industry that in 5 minutes you can find out that a DC isolator can't be tested. So what do you do if you can plan? You can't. Some things you can't plan for. So yeah, I'm expecting next year. You know, we've sort of said internally amongst my team in EV and UPS and PV inverters, plan for everything that can't be planned for. He who has stock wins. You know, holding that stock will be a benefit to you. We've made plans around that to hold stock. And there's still going to be people that say, I can't sell your products, you don't have stock. And the fact is that we have people that are ordering, hold stock. You know, your customers, you know it, you're in distribution. You do what you can with what you've got. The main thing is just getting, you know, we've got new products coming. So getting components for those new products is what's been difficult all this year. I've got a product that's a year late.
So semiconductors, is that the issue?
Yeah, semiconductors and, you know, it comes down into raw materials. We're getting down to things like aluminium now for castings. A factory might shut down somewhere that's got a COVID outbreak, so you can't get the castings done. We use all castings instead of pressed aluminium. That makes life hard. And there's an issue with contaminated aluminium that, you know, I'm reading about. Even Austal ships here in WA building their ships. They're 6 months behind now because the aluminium that's arrived is substandard. There seems to be some corners cut all over the place.
Now, have you come across some customers or some installers who are disillusioned with solar?
Disillusion is in, that's it, I'm out, I'm over it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Every person I speak to would be lying if they said I'm loving solar. But they all at one point say, oh, I've just had enough. What's next? What are we going to move into? And the thing is, one thing they're not really planning for is they're all very passionate about this industry. And it's hard to say, look, I want to leave this industry because it's become their passion, as it is for you, me, Karl. And yeah, they're looking for that next thing, but I think they're going to stick with it and they just need to keep working with it. You know, when we heard the news that we've got all these issues with DC isolators, we all knew, look, it's going to work itself out. Let's just work on it. And it was a close one. But yet, have there been people on the phone to me emotional? Yep. Have there been people who are telling me that they're going to be losing assets and might have to go into administration? Yep. You take 4 or 5 of those calls a day for 1 week when it got really touchy. That takes your toll on you when you're working with your headphones in front of a computer in your back room of your house, and then you've got to dust all that off and go and spend time with your family. Yeah, there's a lot of disillusionment from that side. It's pretty sad. Then you get the flip side where you send the emails out and say, hey, looks like we're going to have this inverter thing sorted. It's going to be listed. We've submitted it. Everything's sort of moving in the right direction. And you get these really, really lovely emails that are saying, thank you so much. Thanks for listening to me when I know your day was super busy and you got a million calls to return. But we'll see what happens in the new year. I hope they can keep those spirits up and push through.
Yeah, well, it saved jobs, it saved companies, and I agree with you, it lifted spirits.
Yeah.
It was pretty. And the flow-on effect, like it is business, but also the flow-on effect is into people's families and into their personal lives as well. Yeah, correct. I mean, it. You've got customers, you'll know their names, their kids' names, what's going on, what they do on their holidays and stuff. So you become quite invested in all this. So knowing people are on hard times is bad, but when you know it's on good times, and that's great as well. So it's pretty good. I mean, you guys in the distribution channels, you've got, you're relying on us manufacturers to make sure our product's compliant and make sure that you can, move those products because you've got it on the water, you've got it in forward forecasts and orders, and the manufacturer's saying you're taking it and you're saying you've got to make sure it's all compliant and working. Otherwise, we're not taking it. And that's when you really know the strength of your partnerships and relationships with people. When you sit there and go, yep, no, you're struggling. What can we do to help? That's a really good time. And I got the impression from the manufacturers we deal with that this was a particularly hard thing to get sorted out. So I suppose we thank the Smart Energy Council, CEC, the advocates in the industry, some of the guys online and guys who are reaching out through email campaigns, posting online, putting it out through their networks, also the manufacturers. So we're thankful that there was a resolution, and I know that there were manufacturers working hard to get that too, including yourself. So we're grateful for that.
I even saw in South Australia, Matthew Curnow got on the news and made a big noise about it, which was great. He was sending out emails to everyone saying, send this draft, this template to your ministers. We all did that I know of, and I don't think one minister responded to any of them. So it just goes to show that the people who are in power and in charge of this, what they really think of their voters. So the other thing I'm interested in is Intersolar on next year.
So, Shane, but one thing I remember about Intersolar is that you can be out late as you like and you're first man on the Delta stand in the morning, fresh as a daisy all day. I take my hat off, and all the good professionals in the industry can burn the candle at both ends. I gave a compliment recently to Sam Craft from NRG in South Oz, and she does lots of stuff. And I just said, Sam, I think you're one of the most professional people I know. There's a compliment. And I wasn't trying to flatter her. I'm just astounded at how much she can get done. But I put you in that category as well, Shane. That you can take on a whole lot. You maintain this professional character. And it's amazing. Good to see. I hope it's on both professionally and also recreationally. It's always fun.
One of my favourite parts of Munich is being on that stand first and watching everyone creep out and crawl onto the stands at various times of the day and see what shape they're in and see how many minutes of sleep they've had, because they've certainly not had any hours. I've got to say, the last time I went to Intersolar, our business unit manager questioned me on whether I should be there or not and what Australians are here. And I sort of put a call out in the WhatsApp group, and a lot of Australians came round and drank copious amounts of alcohol from the Delta bar, to the point where he said, can you ask them to leave because we're going to run out of alcohol? And that was and agreed, yes, there's enough Australians to warrant me being there. The crew came through for me on that one. That was very good.
But we hope we can travel. I don't know what the Greek letter is after Omicron. Hopefully it's a good one.
Yeah, I hope there's not many more letters left in the alphabet.
Absolutely.
I was disappointed that we didn't get E, Echo. What happened to those?
Guys, D was enough for us. Okay.
Delta, of course.
Yeah. Okay. It couldn't. I wish the E and Omicron had come along a lot sooner. Let me tell you, it was a butt of jokes for a while, wasn't it?
I thought that one was so subtle you wouldn't get it, but you got it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I think Delta Airlines got more stick on us than that one, so that's all good. But 2022, if I could pick a month, I would say let's get excited by May, that I think things could sort of start. I don't know if they're going to become normal or we will work within everything that is the norm by that point. And being May, we can get ready for the good times. I just hope that the retailers and installers can take this, got everything back on track. If they do get a chance to R&R over this Christmas period, that'd be good. And then come into the new year and start off again and build back up. But I think we need to be mindful that a lot of shipping around that February month is going to be difficult with a combination of Chinese New Year and Winter Olympics. Sure, you might be using European products or products from other nations, but those shipping lanes out of China can cause a lot of delays when it stops.
Yeah, as if shipping wasn't enough of a problem already.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. I mean, I've got the forecast on what's happening in shipping over the next 6 months, and it makes you nauseous to know what a container is going to cost to get into this country.
It's not just solar too. So people are starting to realise that all consumer products are starting to go up, and that trend will probably continue so long as the cost of shipping lines goes up and there's, some constraint on that too.
And I think products you actually need, so, foodstuffs, food imports are going to go up. So I'm sure the next sales pitch will be the one that it always is, which, and rightly so, is save on your electricity, get your credit from your electricity and spend it on these needing items that keep going up in price. And it's going up in price because of logistics.
So appeal to the inner prepper in people.
Yeah. You'd be somewhat of a prepper, Luke, no doubt.
Oh, somewhat. A closet prepper, yes.
Solar is a very small part of the freight lines and what's going on there. So I'm hoping that we can get enough supply and have it coming in and stock the shelves and go out. There's still a lot of empty roofs out there that are going to need solar. And if you, as you know, my saying is, if you're not making electricity, you're paying for it.
But here's hoping for a great year next year. At least the industry has shown that no matter what has been thrown at it, we've been resilient. Even in the most recent weeks, we've shown that even the inverter manufacturers were getting together and collaborating and that sort of thing. I think that happens at all levels. So you've got that within distributors, wholesalers, importers, manufacturers, also on the retail side. So you see a lot of collaboration and even between competitors. So I think we're fortunate to have an industry that has that sort of culture. And I'm hopeful that next year is going to be a good one.
Me too, fellas. Me too.
So Shane, thanks heaps for coming on today, man. It's been good to have a chat. I hope you have a great Christmas. Enjoy time with the family, some downtime and R&R.
I think that's definitely going to be happening. I think we've got probably around about 200 hours of sleep to catch up on after the last few months. So, yeah, it's going to be good. And wish a Merry Christmas to you, gents, as well.
Merry Christmas. Thanks for coming on, Shane.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Karl. So thanks for listening. If you enjoyed, please share it around to anyone it might be relevant to and click the subscribe button. Thanks a lot.